Sure. I wanted to ask you about the Philippines and statements that have been made up to the level of the president since about the order to surrender and their situation in the Golan Heights. The president of the Philippines has said it's still unclear to him, and he as president of the country, he could not countenance deploying more soldiers into missions that are either unclear or mission impossible. So I wanted to know. I know that the Secretary General met with the foreign minister. What's the current status of understanding between UN peacekeeping and the Philippines, and what more has been found about the facts of how it came to be that trucks, guns, and uniforms were given to al-Nusrah?
Well, I don't think anything was given to al-Nusrah. I think if you're talking about the Fijians, the release was secured. We only were able to get the soldiers back. Obviously, very unfortunately, their equipment and other material were not returned. So nothing was given to them. You know, as far as the Filipino contingent, they worked under extremely difficult, complicated, and challenging environment. We're obviously very grateful for all the energy and the expertise and the selfless work that our peacekeepers and civilian personnel do all over the world, and especially in a mission like UNDOF. Where I don't know what else to tell you. We've, we had mentioned before, once the positions were vacated on August 30th, I think 68 and 69, we decided, in cooperation with the government of the Philippines, to move up their repatriation. Since the positions that they had occupied could no longer be occupied, and we facilitated that repatriation. As I said, we're very grateful for their service and what Filipino peacekeepers have done for peacekeeping missions all over the world.
Just one follow-up. The president of the Philippines said specifically that the Philippine contingent had asked for more weapons, and the request had been denied. And he said, quote, "We are waiting for the investigation of the UN on the incident, and it will be on that basis that we will decide how we will help the needs of the world community." So what's the timeline for the investigation, and is it true that providing additional weapons to them was denied?
I don't have a timeline to share with you. I think if you look back at the SG successive reports on UNDOF, you'll see that UNDOF has had the capacity to ensure that we have the capacity necessary to fulfill the mandate securely and safely. We, over the past year, have enhanced the self-defense capabilities of UNDOF, including increasing including increasing the troop strength to about 1,250 and improving the self-defense equipment. And that equipment is done within the parameters of the protocol to the disengagement agreement between Israel and Syria. Yes,
On
sir.
the same subject, however, all these reinforcements did not yield any substantial results, and as we still know that al-Nusra is controlling the separation area, and they are spreading into Mount Hermon, as I understand, into Jabhat area. Have you received any reports from UNIFIL regarding that? And what's the United Nations going to do in order to recover the equipment and the weapons which have been taken by al-Nusra front?
The area of operation of UNDOF, as you know, is in the midst of extremely tense and challenging times. The mission is an observer mission. It has a very specific mandate. They are operating to the best of their capability, keeping in line their need to fulfill the mandate and also our need to protect the safety of our troops. It is incumbent on anyone who is holding UN equipment, UN uniforms, to return them, and we would call on those groups that have them to return them. International law allows for peacekeepers to use force in self-defense, but obviously we're operating in a very challenging environment.
How do you categorize the Jordanian and Israeli cooperation in curbing such groups from entering the area and from having supplies routes, also helping them with the medication and etc.?
You know, I can't comment to the allegations you're specifically making, but I do know that the those countries that surround the UNDOF area have a responsibility to the UN, and we've also appreciated the work and support that those countries have given us.
It's not me I'm making the
No,
Mr. Latsu himself
Yeah.
spoke from this desk here, and he confirmed that they are getting support from the Israelis.
I'm not sure.
When
I'm
he-
not
at
sure
least,
that.
at least on medication. He on record he went on, and yes, he said they are getting medical support.
If Mr. Letsu said it, then you have your answer. Yes, ma'am. Nizar, then Matthew.
After the tragedy
Yeah,
of the vaccinated children in northern Syria, in the Free Syrian Army controlled areas, many children died as a result of vaccination. Does the United Nations believe that there should be some more control on the material coming across the borders into Syria as a humanitarian aid? For example, it could have happened that poisonous food have been smuggled.
I think
not just old vaccine.
No, I understand, and I think you're mixing apples and oranges here. What we saw with the tragedy that happened with the vaccine was a mistake made by one of the NGO partners, where people mixed the wrong liquids into the vaccine. They took muscle relaxant, which is meant to be used as part of an anesthesia, into the vaccine. It was a tragic and horrible mistake, but it had nothing to do with the quality of the aid that has been coming through the borders. And I don't think we've seen any cases of food or medicine that has been old or tainted coming in through UN channels. What happened with the vaccines was a real tragedy, but it was basic human error.
Another thing, in his efforts, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, to expedite any political settlement in Syria, how does he categorize the receiving Mr. Bahra in his office? United Nations is a group of member states, not of member rebel groups.
I think
is it normal? I mean, for
it is.
Secretary
You are right. The UN is an organization of member states, but the Secretary General has responsibility under his good offices, and he needs to meet with whomever he feels he should meet with to try to advance the political process. The fact that he's Secretary General of an organization of member states does not preclude him from meeting with parties that are engaged in a political process. It's very important for the Secretary General to keep that freedom.
even if they are war criminals, for example?
That is your description of them?
I'm not talking about al-Bahra here.
No, the Secretary General and his envoys need to meet with whomever they need to meet with in order to advance a political process, whether it be in Syria or wherever.
Why were we back?
Nizar, I promise I will come back to you. I may not give you the last word, but I will come back to you.
Yeah.
Nizar,
Stefan, regarding
please.
the meeting between Mr. Ban Ki-moon and Mr. al-Bahra, we were invited to film that, and in the last second, as the door was opened, we were stopped from entering the room. What's the reason behind that? Although it was clear this was open for international media.
Your colleague Matthew asked the question yesterday. You could look at the transcript, but for your benefit, I will answer again. It is usual during the GA that meetings with delegations representing member states are open to international media, that delegations not representing member states that are a party to the Secretary General's good offices are only covered by UN photo, and a readout was also supplied.
In the case of Samir Jaja, who visited Mr. Ban Ki-moon in 2007, Mr. Jaja, who represents a group in Lebanon at that time, we were allowed to film him at that time.
I barely remember what I did yesterday, but I'm happy to look back to what happened in 2007.